I'm Nicholas Harrington and I'm 29 years old. 6 days ago, I buried my father in a cemetery overlooking the ocean in Miami. The Florida sun was so blinding that day, it felt almost like an insult. 3 days after that, I sat on a leather couch in a law firm, watching my stepmother inherit everything: our $22 million oceanfront mansion on Star Island, and an 85% stake in my father's real estate development company, valued at $30 million. And the very next day, she stood at the front door of the home where I grew up and said something I'll never forget: "Go rot in a dumpster for all I care." I left that night. I didn't fight, and I didn't beg, because I knew secrets she didn't. My father was a builder. He spent 40 years shaping the Miami skyline. But a true builder doesn't just work with concrete and steel. They excel at building plans. Since I was a kid, he taught me that the strength of any structure depends entirely on its foundation. Every beam, column, and load-bearing wall must carry its weight exactly as designed. Scarlett was about to learn what happens when you build your life on shifting sand, because what she heard at the reading of the will was only a fraction of the story. The funeral was held 3 days after his passing. Sudden cardiac arrest. The doctors said he was gone before the ambulance even arrived. More than 200 people showed up. Employees from Harrington Development Group, tenants from our 8 commercial properties, competitors who respected him, and friends of several decades. The cemetery overlooked the Atlantic Ocean, his favorite view. He always said water was honest, it never pretended to be anything else. I stood by the grave in a tight black suit, watching them lower the casket next to my mother's. She passed away 7 years ago in a car crash that took her far too soon. For 7 years it was just my dad and me, until Scarlett showed up 4.5 years ago. She stood right next to me, wearing an expensive custom designer dress. Her expression was perfectly poised, but her hand was glued to her phone. I watched her subtly adjust her angle to snap a photo of the floral arrangements, likely to post on her Instagram account, @Scarlett'sEmpire. She had 183,000 followers who tuned in daily to watch her flaunt her supposedly perfect life. I felt Patricia's hand squeeze mine. Patricia Donovan was my mother's best friend from college, and had been my father's chief accountant for 40 years. She was closer to me than my own grandmother. At 68, she was the only person left in my life who still called me Miho. "Your mother would be so proud of how strong you are right now," she whispered. I just nodded, too afraid that if I spoke I would fall apart. 2 days later we gathered in Stanley Robbins' office for the reading of the will. Stanley was my father's estate lawyer, a professional and genuinely compassionate man. His office in Coral Gables was filled with dark wood and vintage leather. Scarlett sat across from me, legs elegantly crossed, tapping her manicured nails impatiently against her phone case. I sat next to Patricia, who held a tissue in one hand and a rosary in the other. Stanley cleared his throat. "I'm incredibly sorry for your loss. Charles was a remarkable man." Scarlett forced a tight smile. "Thank you. Can we get started?" Stanley opened his folder. "Of course. The estate is substantial, so I will summarize the key terms. The residence on Star Island, currently valued at approximately $22 million, will transfer to Scarlett Rains Harrington." Scarlett's smile widened. "Additionally, the 85% ownership stake in Harrington Development Group LLC, valued at approximately $30 million, will also transfer to Scarlett Rains Harrington." I watched her shoulders visibly relax. She even let out a brief, self-satisfied chuckle. Stanley continued, his voice steady. "But this is subject to the terms of the LLC operating agreement filed with the state of Florida." Scarlett wasn't even listening anymore. She was typing rapidly on her phone, clearly texting someone to brag. But I heard it. "Subject to the operating agreement." Patricia's hand found mine again, giving it a firm squeeze. She heard it too. Stanley looked up at me. "Nicholas, you have been named the beneficiary of an independent trust. The details will be provided to you by Mr. Castellano at the Castellano Trust law firm." I nodded, having no idea who Mr. Castellano was. Stanley closed the folder. "That covers the main provisions. If there are no questions—" "None at all," Scarlett said, standing up. "Thank you, Stanley. Send over whatever documents I need to sign." She didn't even look at me as she walked out. I sat there staring at her empty chair. "Miho," Patricia whispered in my ear. "That woman didn't hear a word of that last part. Subject to the operating agreement. Do you know what that means under Florida law?" I shook my head. "It means," she said slowly, "this will is definitely not the end of the story." The very next day, Scarlett began remodeling. I returned to the place I still called home to find workers taking down my mother's portraits. There was their wedding photo, our family portrait from my high school graduation, and a candid shot of my mother laughing in the garden. "Where are these going?" I asked one of the workers. "Storage," he replied awkwardly. "Mrs. Harrington's orders." I found Scarlett in the living room, gesturing to an interior designer with fabric swatches. "Scarlett, those are my mother's photos." She didn't even look up. "Nicholas, this is my house now. I'm updating the aesthetic. Your mother's taste is very 2010. My mother died in 2019. I turned around, went to my room, and locked the door. On the second day, Patricia called me. "Nikki, I'm looking at the company credit card statements. Your stepmother spent $38,000 yesterday at boutiques in Bal Harbour. Hermes, Chanel. Your father hasn't even been gone 72 hours. I closed my eyes. "Okay, thanks for letting me know." "Mijo, this is not okay. It's outrageous." "I know, Patricia, I know." On the third day, Scarlett brought a real estate agent to the house. I was in the kitchen and heard her voice carrying from the foyer. "I want to liquidate some assets. Star Island is too dated for me. I want to move to the Venetian Islands. It's more modern and docking a yacht is much easier there." The agent, a woman in her 50s holding an iPad, nodded with a practiced smile. "The Miami commercial market is incredibly hot right now. What's in the portfolio?" 8 properties, including office buildings and retail plazas. I'll send you the list." I walked out of the kitchen. "You can't just sell the company properties." Scarlett turned, her eyes ice cold. "Excuse me, did you inherit 85% of this company?" "No, but..." "Then it's none of your business," she said, turning back to the agent. "That's my late husband's son. He's still in a transition phase." On the 4th day, I tried to talk to her about the business operations. "Scarlett, the company isn't just a list of assets. It's real people, employees, tenants, people who rely on us to make a living." "I know exactly what the company is, Nicholas. I'm not stupid." "I'm not saying you are, but we should talk to Patricia. At least look at the financial statements before making any major moves." She laughed. It was a sharp, grating sound. "Patricia works for me now, and I don't need a 29-year-old commercial leasing lawyer from Brickell telling me how to run a $30 million company. Your dad is gone. This is all mine now." On the 5th day, she threw a party. From my room, I listened to the thumping music, the laughter, the clinking glasses, and the voices of strangers filling the house where my father had lived just 2 weeks ago. I opened Instagram. Scarlett had posted a story with 2 champagne flutes captioned, "New Beginnings." The next slide showed the infinity pool glowing under the night sky. Living my truth. I turned off my phone. On the 6th day, I needed to retrieve something from my father's study. I knocked, then opened the door to find Scarlett going through his desk. "I need to grab some of Dad's personal documents," I said. "Personal items?" She looked up. "Yes?" "Like what?" "Letters, photos, his..." "Those are in my house now, Nicholas. In my study. I decide what happens to them." "Scarlett, those are family records. They belong to me. I am his widow. You are just a child from a previous marriage." A cold weight sank in my chest. A child from a previous marriage. "That's right," she said, standing up and crossing her arms. "This is my mansion, my company, my documents. You have no legal rights here. You've lived here for 20 years, but your time is up. Pack your things, Nicholas. You're not welcome here anymore." A cruel smile crept onto her face. "Go rot in a dumpster for all I care." The Ring doorbell camera on the wall captured everything. I could see the little red recording light blinking. I packed my bags that night. Clothes, books, my laptop, and a few photos I kept in my room. I loaded everything into my Honda Civic, a car I bought myself with my salary as an attorney. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked back at the house. Scarlett was standing on the 2nd-floor balcony, holding a champagne glass, talking on the phone and laughing loudly. I didn't feel angry. I felt something quieter, deeper. Patience. My father taught me that some structures take time to collapse. You just have to find the right pressure point and wait. On the 7th day at 7 a.m., Patricia called. "Mijo, where are you staying?" I was at a Motel 6 off I-95. The room smelled like bleach and old carpet. "I'm fine, Patricia." "Don't lie to me, where are you?" I told her. "Absolutely not. Pack your bags and move in with me. Your mother would haunt me forever if I let you stay in a motel. Get over here right now." An hour later, I was standing in her Coral Gables apartment. It was small but bright, warm, and filled with memories. "Sit down," she said, pouring 2 small cups of Cuban espresso. "We need to talk." She opened her laptop and turned the screen toward me, displaying spreadsheets and company financial records. I am still the treasurer of the company, at least until she figures out how to fire me, so I see all the accounts." She pointed to the screen. "The company is indeed valued at $30 million. But look at the liabilities column." I scanned the numbers. $16 million in debt, mortgages, construction bridge loans, liens. Your father ran a highly leveraged real estate portfolio. That's standard in development, but it means the actual net worth of the company is $14 million, not 30. "Does Scarlett know this?" Patricia scoffed. "She hasn't even asked for a balance sheet. She heard the number 30 million and her brain shut down." I kept scrolling. "There's a mortgage on the Star Island house too? $12 million? Dad refinanced it 2 years ago to fund another investment. I don't know what it was. Maybe the trust Stanley mentioned." She pointed to another line. "Look at the monthly payment. $52,000. If she wants to keep that house, she has to pay $52,000 every single month. And she has no income. Nikki, she doesn't even have a job. Instagram likes don't pay mortgages." On the 8th day, the first mortgage payment was automatically deducted. Patricia called me, barely able to contain her laughter. She just called me screaming. "Why is there a mortgage? Why was $52,000 taken out of the account?" "What did you tell her?" I told her the mortgage autopay has been set up for 2 years. She screamed that she thought the house was paid off. I just asked, "Why would you assume that?" And she slammed the phone down. On the 10th day, Scarlett tried to access the company bank account. Patricia forwarded me the email thread. "Scarlett, I need to withdraw $200,000 for personal expenses." Patricia, "Under the LLC operating agreement, any withdrawal over $50,000 requires board approval." Scarlett, "I am the owner. I don't need board approval." Patricia, "You are a shareholder, but you are not the sole operator. Under Florida corporate law, those are entirely different legal roles." On the 12th day, Scarlett posted a new photo on Instagram. She was sitting on a yacht, holding champagne, wearing designer sunglasses. The caption read, "Living my best widow life." My father had been gone for only 13 days. Patricia took a screenshot and texted it to me. "Evidence, mijo." On the 15th day, a tenant called Patricia. It was Mrs. Sullivan, an 82-year-old woman who had lived in one of our modest apartment buildings in Little Havana for 15 years. My father kept her rent extremely low because she lived on a fixed pension. "She screamed at me," Mrs. Sullivan said, her voice shaking on the phone. "I called to report that my air conditioning broke. It's 90 degrees in Miami right now, and she yelled, 'Fix it yourself. I'm not your property manager.'" Patricia's hands were shaking when she hung up. "That woman," she muttered. "No shame at all." That evening, we sat on her balcony, looking out over the Coral Gables skyline. "Your father," Patricia said. "He knew, didn't he? He saw exactly who she was." I nodded. "I think so." "Then why did he marry her?" I thought about it. "I think he was lonely after Mom passed, and when Scarlett wanted to please someone, she could be incredibly charming. She made him happy for a while. But eventually he saw the truth. So he built a plan." Patricia looked at me. "What plan?" "I'm not entirely sure yet, but I have a feeling—" I paused. "Stanley mentioned another lawyer, Castellano. He has the trust information. Have you heard from him?" "Not yet." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Your father was the most meticulous man I've ever met. He reviewed every contract twice. He left nothing to chance." "I know." "So if he left something for you with another lawyer, completely independent of the will, there's a very good reason for it." I looked at her. "Do you think he set a test for her?" She smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "I think he built a very precise legal trap, mijo, and Scarlett is live-streaming her way right into it." The call came on the 11th day from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but intuition made me pick up. "Mr. Harrington," a deep, authoritative voice said, "this is Vincent Castellano. I was your father's personal attorney. We need to meet." His office was on the 40th floor of a glass tower in Brickell, overlooking Biscayne Bay. The reception area was clad in mahogany and leather, the kind of place where high-net-worth families plan their legacies. Vincent Castellano was nearly 70, with a sharp suit, gold cufflinks, and a firm, reassuring handshake. "Thank you for coming, Nicholas. Please sit." I took a seat across from him. A thick file sat on his desk. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said. "Your father was an exceptionally smart client." "Thank you. What did Stanley tell you?" "He just said you had information regarding a trust." Vincent nodded. "Accurate, but incomplete. Your father and I spent 8 months designing a legal foundation. Not just a trust, but a corporate structure. He opened the folder and slid a thick document toward me. This is the Harrington Development Group LLC operating agreement, filed with the Florida Division of Corporations on March 15, 2023. Exactly 8 months before your father passed. I picked it up. It was about 60 pages long. This document, Vincent said, takes legal precedence over your father's personal will regarding the transfer of company assets. I looked up sharply. It overrides the will? Florida corporate law is very clear. When commercial assets are held within an LLC, the transfer of ownership is governed by the operating agreement, not a personal will. While your father's will states Scarlett inherits 85% of the LLC, this agreement attaches conditions to that transfer. What conditions? Vincent flipped to a marked page. Section 7.3, I'll read it to you. He put on his glasses. Upon the passing of the primary member, ownership of this LLC shall automatically transfer to the Eleanor Harrington Foundation, unless the surviving spouse can demonstrate continued care and support for the decedent's child, as defined in Section 7.4. The air left my lungs. The Eleanor Harrington Foundation. That was my mother's name. Your father established this non-profit foundation 2 years ago, Vincent explained. It's a charitable organization dedicated to providing housing assistance for families affected by cancer. My mother died of ovarian cancer after a grueling 3-year battle. He set this up in her name. My voice cracked. Yes. And he made the foundation the default beneficiary of the LLC assets. However, if Scarlett showed you basic care and support, she would keep everything. The foundation transfer would never be triggered. The condition would be met. And how is care and support defined? Vincent turned to Section 7.4. First, maintaining the decedent's child's right to reside in the family home for a minimum of 12 months. Second, the absence of hostile, abusive, or neglectful treatment. Third, allowing reasonable involvement in business decisions. He looked up at me. She kicked you out on the 6th day. Yes, she told me to go rot in a dumpster. And how do you have the Ring doorbell footage? I asked. 18 months ago, I advised your father to install those cameras, all recordings back up to a secure cloud server that I control. I stared at him. You've been monitoring us. I've been documenting. There's a difference. I have no interest in her private life, only in whether she violated the terms of the agreement. And she has, repeatedly. He slid another document forward. It was a property deed. This is the deed to the Star Island property. Your father recorded a life estate provision 10 months ago. You have an irrevocable legal right to live in that house for 12 months following his passing. She had no legal authority to evict you without a court order. But she did, which means she violated your legal rights and simultaneously violated the LLC agreement twice. He folded his hands, his eyes steady. Nicholas, your father didn't design this to punish Scarlett. He designed it to protect you and to give her a choice. If she had shown you decency, respected your grief, and treated you with basic humanity, she would have kept a $30 million company and a luxury mansion. The foundation would never have been activated. My eyes welled up with tears. He loved you very much, Vincent said softly. So much so that he spent the last months of his life building this legal shield to ensure you would be safe, no matter what she did. I couldn't speak. Vincent stood up, poured me a glass of water, and handed it to me. There's one more thing, he said. The agreement specifies a 60-day monitoring window. I've documented everything, her spending, her treatment of you, and her behavior toward the tenants and employees. At the end of the 60 days, I will issue a final determination on whether she violated the conditions. Today is day 11. Yes, there are 49 days left. But frankly, Nicholas, the evidence I have right now is airtight. The footage of her throwing you out on day 6 is enough to seal the case, but we will wait out the full 60 days to ensure there are absolutely no loopholes. He sat back down and looked at me intently. In 49 days, I will ask you a question, and I need you to be ready with an answer. What question? Do you want justice or do you want revenge? My father built this for justice. Don't let grief turn it into revenge. I looked at him. What's the difference? Justice, he said, gives her an exit. It holds her accountable for her choices, but leaves her a dignified way out if she cooperates. Revenge destroys her entirely. And if she refuses the exit? Vincent offered a cold, knowing smile. Then she is left with absolutely nothing. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in self-destruction. On day 16, Patricia texted me. She just tried to refinance the Star Island mansion. The bank denied her due to insufficient income. On day 18, the second mortgage payment went through. Patricia called me laughing. She called the bank screaming that there was a system error. The representative politely explained the charge was correct and had been running automatically for 2 years. On day 19, Scarlett contacted a real estate agent to sell the mansion. Patricia's contact in the industry told her, high-end luxury properties in Miami take 6 to 9 months to sell, and the buyer pool at $22 million is incredibly small. How did she react? I asked. She threw a tantrum. On day 20, Scarlett tried to sell a piece of the LLC's commercial portfolio. She called one of my father's old rivals, a major developer, and offered to sell a prime retail center in Wynwood for $8 million. The developer, wanting to verify the deal, called Patricia and asked if it was legitimate. Patricia, God bless her, remained completely calm. Under the operating agreement, any sale of LLC assets requires board approval. Has Mrs. Harrington consulted the board? You guys have a board? Of course. I'll email you the bylaws right now. The developer backed out of the deal immediately. On day 22, Patricia made her move. She froze the distributions from the LLC. As the officially designated financial controller under the operating agreement, she held the absolute authority to freeze disbursements if a beneficiary's actions threatened the company's assets or breached fiduciary duties. Scarlett's constant bragging on Instagram, her backroom attempts to sell off property, and her abusive treatment of tenants were more than enough to justify the freeze. I was at Patricia's apartment when Scarlett called, screaming. Patricia put her on speakerphone. "You can't cut off my money, I own this company." "You are a shareholder, Mrs. Harrington. You are not the operator, I am, and I have a fiduciary duty to protect the company." "I will fire you." "You can't. My position is written into the operating agreement, not decided by the owner. To remove me, you would have to amend the agreement, which requires a supermajority vote. I have 85% of the shares. A supermajority for certain clauses, including my removal, requires unanimous consent." Scarlett slammed the phone down. Patricia looked over at me. "Do you want to bet she has never once read that operating agreement?" "I don't bet on guaranteed wins," I said. On day 23, Scarlett fired Julian, our property manager. He had worked for my father for 15 years, a good, meticulous, and fair man who was deeply respected by all our tenants. Scarlett's excuse for firing him was insubordination. His crime? Explaining to her that threatening to evict an elderly tenant for being a single day late on rent was illegal under Florida law. Julian called me in tears. "Your father was like a brother to me, Nicholas. I can't believe this is happening." "I'm so sorry, Julian. This isn't on you." "I know, kid. It's on her." On day 24, Scarlett posted a photo on Instagram. She was posing next to a white Bentley Continental with the caption, "Upgrading my life." According to Patricia's digging, the car was leased at $4,200 a month. The comment section was brutal. "Your husband has been gone for 2 weeks and you're posting this?" "Absolutely classless. Show some respect." On day 27, Vincent called me. "We now have 47 documented violations, violating the operating agreement, ignoring your residency rights, breaching fiduciary duties, and abusing tenants. We could trigger the foundation transfer right now, but I want to wait." "Why? The more rope we give her, the tighter she'll wind it around her own neck. I want this to be so absolute that she has no choice but to accept a settlement." "What kind of settlement?" "We'll discuss it on day 42. Trust me, Nicholas, just be patient." On day 29, a private investigator hired by Vincent photographed Scarlett meeting with a commercial real estate broker at a South Beach restaurant. They were discussing listing all 8 properties to liquidate the entire portfolio. The investigator got photos, audio recordings, the whole package. On day 30, Patricia pulled me aside. "Mijo, she is drowning, and she doesn't even realize she's underwater." On day 32, Scarlett's credit card was declined at a restaurant. Someone filmed the encounter and posted it to TikTok, where it quickly went viral. In the video, she was yelling at the server, "Run it again! The money is in the account!" The server looked mortified. "Ma'am, I've run it 3 times. It keeps declining." "This is ridiculous. Do you have any idea who I am?" The comment section on TikTok was even worse than Instagram. On day 33, Scarlett tried to take out an unsecured loan using the Star Island mansion as collateral. The bank reviewed her application, looked at the existing $12 million mortgage, calculated her net worth, and assessed her income, which was 0. The application was rejected instantly. On day 35 at 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Scarlett. "Your dead father set me up, but I will burn this company to the ground before you ever get your hands on it." I took a screenshot and sent it to Vincent. He replied with one word: "Perfect." The next morning, Vincent called. "She just hired a litigation attorney. He's planning to challenge the will." "Can he?" "He can try. But the will is ironclad, and the operating agreement was filed with the state. Once he actually reads it, he'll tell her she doesn't stand a chance." Vincent paused. "But this forces us to move sooner than planned. We go in on day 42. Come to my office and we'll lay out the terms." On day 36, I sat in Vincent's office listening to the plan. Her attorney will find the reference to the operating agreement in the will. Eventually, he'll ask for a copy. I'll provide it. He'll read section 7.3 and 7.4. Then he'll call me. "And what will you say?" "I'll propose a meeting. Scarlett, her attorney, you and me. We'll schedule it for day 42, exactly 6 weeks after your father passed. We'll lay it all out and then we'll give her a choice." "What choice?" Vincent slid a piece of paper across the desk. "Option A, a lump sum settlement calculated based on the length of her marriage and Florida spousal guidelines. She signs a complete release of any claim to the LLC, signs an NDA and walks away." "How much?" $185,000. I stared at him. $185,000 from a $30 million company? $14 million net after debt, Vincent corrected. "And she was married to your father for only 4.5 years. Under Florida law, for a short-term marriage with a massive wealth disparity, that is actually a generous offer." "And option B?" "Option B, she rejects the settlement and keeps the assets she supposedly inherited. The mansion with a $12 million mortgage and a $52,000 monthly payment she can't afford, and the empty shell of an LLC whose shares will automatically transfer to the foundation tonight. She can fight us in court, spend $200,000 on legal fees, and lose. Every miserable thing she has done will become a matter of public record. Her 183,000 followers will get to read about how she told a grieving son to rot in a dumpster 6 days after his father's funeral." I leaned back in my chair. "You thought of everything." "Your father thought of everything. I'm just executing the blueprint." On day 37, Patricia and I organized the evidence. We sat at her dining table surrounded by printouts. 63 documented violations, transcripts of the Ring camera footage, Instagram screenshots, Julian's statement, statements from Mrs. Sullivan and 2 other tenants, bank statements showing her spending, and emails showing unauthorized attempts to sell company assets. "This is," Patricia said softly, "the most devastating legal paper trail I have ever seen in 40 years of accounting." I picked up an old journal that belonged to my mother. Patricia had kept it for me after she died. I flipped to a random page and saw her familiar handwriting. "True wealth is measured by how many lives you make better, not by how much you own." I closed the journal. She would have hated all of this. Hated what? The conflict, the lawyers, the legal battles. Patricia placed her hand over mine. "She would have hated seeing you thrown out like trash even more, mijo. Don't confuse kindness with weakness. Your mother was kind, but she was strong. She would want you protected." On day 38, Scarlett's lawyer called Vincent. I was in Vincent's office at the time. He put him on speaker. "Mr. Castellano, my client believes there has been an error in the asset distribution." Vincent's voice was smooth and unbothered. "There is no error, counselor. Would Mrs. Harrington like to schedule a meeting? I can clarify the corporate structure for you." There was a silence on the line. "The corporate structure?" "The LLC operating agreement. I assume you've reviewed it." An even longer silence followed. "I have requested a copy. I'll email it over today. Give it a read, then call me back so we can schedule a time." He hung up. "He hasn't read it yet," Vincent said. "How do you know?" "Because if he had, his first call would have been to Scarlett, telling her to take whatever settlement she could get. Once he reads this," Vincent smiled, "he'll call back tomorrow, and we'll set the meeting for day 42. During days 39 and 40, I tried to prepare myself mentally. I visited a few of the properties. I stopped by the apartment building where Mrs. Sullivan lived, and she hugged me tightly, crying and thanking me for checking on her. I went to our main office in Brickell and spoke with some of the employees who had known my father for years. "He always said," one of them told me, "take care of the people and the properties will take care of themselves." On day 41, the night before the meeting, Patricia made dinner. She cooked ropa vieja, my mother's favorite Cuban dish. We sat on the balcony, eating in comfortable silence. Tomorrow is the day, mijo. Tomorrow she learns her lesson. I moved the food around my plate. I don't want to hurt her, Patricia. I just want justice. Justice isn't you hurting her, Nikki. Justice is letting her reap what she sowed. I looked out at the city lights, remembering the last words my father said to me in his hospital room 2 weeks before he died. The foundation holds up everything, but if you build on sand, the whole structure will come down. I didn't sleep at all that night. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. in Vincent's conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Biscayne Bay, and a long mahogany table was set with water glasses and writing pads. Scarlett arrived 7 minutes late, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit and far too much jewelry. Her lawyer walked in beside her, a young associate in his 30s, clutching a briefcase and looking incredibly nervous. Vincent and I were already seated. I was only there to observe, intending to keep quiet unless necessary. "Thank you for coming," Vincent said, standing up to shake hands. Scarlett ignored him, sitting down heavily and crossing her arms. "This is ridiculous. The will is perfectly clear. I inherit everything." Vincent sat back down. "Mrs. Harrington, the will is clear, but the will does not govern the assets of the LLC. The operating agreement does." He slid a document across the table. "This is the operating agreement for Harrington Development Group, LLC, filed with the state of Florida on March 15, 2023, exactly 8 months before your husband's passing." Scarlett's lawyer, I never did catch his name, picked up the document and flipped through it. His face went pale. "Please turn to Section 7.3, Vincent said. The lawyer complied. I watched his throat move as he swallowed hard. Vincent began to read, his voice completely level. "Upon the death of the primary member, ownership of this LLC shall automatically transfer to the Eleanor Harrington Foundation, unless the surviving spouse can demonstrate continued care and support for the decedent's child, as defined in Section 7.4. Scarlett snapped her head up. "What? No, the will says—" Vincent held up a hand. "Mrs. Harrington, were you listening at the reading of the will?" She blinked. "What? In Stanley Robbins' office, when he read the clause regarding the LLC, did you listen to the words?" I remembered Stanley's voice. "Subject to the terms of the LLC operating agreement." Scarlett's face turned bright red. "That's just boilerplate legal language. A template." "That language," Vincent said quietly, "is the key to everything." He opened a binder. Section 7.4 defines continued care and support. There are 3 requirements. First, maintaining the decedent's child's right to reside in the family home for a minimum of 12 months. He pushed a transcript of the Ring camera audio across the table. Day 6, direct quote, "Pack your things, Nicholas. You're not welcome here anymore. Go rot in a dumpster for all I care." End quote. Scarlett's lawyer looked at the transcript, horrified. "Mrs. Harrington," he whispered, "did you say this?" She didn't answer. Vincent continued. Second, the absence of hostile, abusive, or neglectful treatment. He pushed more documents forward. Screenshots of her Instagram posts, text messages, witness statements from tenants, the unwarranted firing of a veteran property manager, the attempted eviction of an elderly tenant over a single day's rent, and the threatening text message sent to Nicholas. Each document landed on the table with a heavy thud. Third, allowing reasonable involvement in business decisions. You attempted to sell company assets without consulting the board. You refused board meetings. You blocked Nicholas from accessing company information. Scarlett stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is illegal! You can't do this!" Under Florida Statute Section 605.0105, Vincent said, his tone remaining perfectly calm, the operating agreement overrides a personal will regarding LLC assets. I can cite 40 years of case law if you'd like. She whipped her head toward me, her eyes wild. "You did this! You poisoned his mind against me!" I spoke for the first time, my voice surprisingly steady. "I didn't do anything, Scarlett. You did this to yourself." She was breathing heavily, her hands shaking. Her lawyer was slowly flipping through the agreement. "Mrs. Harrington," the lawyer said quietly, "this document is binding. The transfer to the foundation is valid. The monitoring window is legal. If they have documentation of the violations—" "How much documentation?" Scarlett's voice cracked. Vincent pushed the final binder forward. 63 documented violations over the last 35 days, each one recorded, dated, and witnessed. She slowly sank back into her chair. Vincent let the silence hang in the room for a moment. "Now, Mrs. Harrington, The Eleanor Harrington Foundation will officially assume ownership of the LLC tonight at 11:59 p.m. However, he opened a final folder. My client has authorized me to offer you a choice. Scarlett looked up, her makeup beginning to smudge. What choice? Vincent pushed 2 documents across the table. One is marked Option A, the other Option B. Option A, he said, you accept a settlement of $185,000. The cash will be wired to your account within 24 hours. You sign a complete waiver of any claims against the LLC. You sign an NDA prohibiting any discussion of this settlement or the estate. You transfer ownership. You vacate the Star Island residence within 10 days. You keep your personal belongings, your jewelry, and the lease on your vehicle through its term. You walk away with your dignity and enough capital to start over. $185,000? Her voice was barely a whisper. From a $30 million company? A $14 million company after liabilities, Vincent corrected. And your marriage to Charles lasted 4.5 years. The amount is calculated based on Florida guidelines for short-term marriages. It is a highly generous offer. And Option B? Option B, you reject the settlement. You keep the assets you supposedly inherited. The mansion with a $12 million mortgage and a $52,000 monthly payment you cannot afford, and the empty shell of an LLC whose shares will transfer to the foundation tonight regardless. You can hire a lawyer to fight us, spend $200,000 in legal fees, and lose. Every single violation we documented will become public record. Your 183,000 followers will read about how you told a grieving son to rot in a dumpster 6 days after his father's funeral. Vincent leaned forward slightly. Option A, cash, a clean break, and privacy. Option B, nothing, public humiliation, and massive legal debt you can't pay. Scarlett stared at the papers, her face entirely pale. Vincent stood up. You have until tomorrow at 2 p.m. to decide. After that, the offer is withdrawn. He walked to the door and opened it. Scarlett's lawyer helped her up. She was trembling as she reached the door, then she stopped and turned to look at me. Did he, her voice caught, did he ever actually love me? I looked at her. I wanted to lie, to say something cutting. But my father built this for justice, not revenge. I think he loved the person he hoped you would choose to be. She let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. If I had just been kind to you, I would have kept everything. The foundation would never have been triggered. There was a compliance clause in the agreement. If you had shown even basic decency, Vincent would have issued a certificate of compliance. You would be a very wealthy widow, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. She stared at me as the realization finally hit her. I chose this, she whispered. Yes, you did. She didn't say another word. She turned and walked out. Her lawyer paused at the door. She'll take Option A, he muttered. She's not stupid enough to choose B. Once they were gone, I sat in the conference room looking out at the bay. Vincent poured 2 glasses of water and handed one to me. You did well, how do you feel? Sad, I admitted. That is the appropriate response. This wasn't a victory, Nicholas, it was a resolution. There is a difference. I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing Scarlett's face. The look she had when she realized that every cruel decision, every dismissive comment, and every malicious act had been a brick she used to build her own prison. At midnight, I checked Instagram. Her account was gone, all 183,000 followers, every post, every story, deleted. It was as if she was trying to erase the evidence, or perhaps herself. At 8 a.m. Patricia called. Did she decide? Not yet, she has until 2 p.m. What do you think she'll do? Her lawyer said she'd take A, but vanity and pride are strange things. At 1:45 p.m. Vincent called. She's here, alone, no attorney. I arrived 10 minutes later. Scarlett was sitting in the same conference room, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt. No makeup, no jewelry. I had never seen her look like this. Ordinary, small, and finally real. Vincent and I sat across from her. She pushed a folder across the table. Option A, it's signed. Vincent opened it and reviewed the documents. The waiver, the NDA, the transfer of ownership, everything was signed and notarized. The wire transfer will be initiated before the end of the day, Vincent said. $185,000 to your designated account. She nodded. You have 10 days to vacate the residence. We will arrange the moving services, and you can take all personal property allowed under the agreement. She nodded again. Vincent gathered the papers. Any questions? Scarlett looked at me, her eyes red. When can I leave? You have 10 days, but you can leave whenever you're ready. The sooner the better, her voice sounded hollow. I don't want to be there anymore. A quiet moment passed. Then she spoke softly. I didn't mean to be so cruel. I was terrified. I didn't say anything. I grew up very poor, Nicholas. Truly poor. When I met your father, I thought I was finally safe. I thought I would never have to be afraid again. When he died, I panicked. I felt like if I didn't fight for everything, I would lose it all and end up back where I started. So you chose fear instead of kindness, I said. She shivered. Yes, you had everything, I told her. If you had shown a shred of decency, if you had given me space to grieve, if you had just been patient, you would have kept it all. I know, a tear ran down her cheek. If I had chosen kindness, what would you have done? The foundation would never have been triggered. Vincent would have certified your compliance. You would be running a $14 million company, living in a $22 million mansion, and I would have moved out. But I probably would have stayed close by. You would have been the only family I had left. She closed her eyes. I was so foolish. You weren't foolish. You were afraid. But you let fear turn into cruelty, and cruelty has a price. She stood up and picked up her bag. I'm sorry, Nicholas, if that means anything at all now. It does. She paused at the door. He was a good man, your father. I know. I wish I could have been a better person, for him and for you. I wish so too. She walked out. Vincent watched the door close. The phrasing of her last sentence was interesting, he noted. How so? She didn't say, I wish I had tried harder. She said, I wish I could have been a better person. As if being good was something she had no control over. I thought about that. Maybe for her it was. Perhaps, but we make choices every day, Nicholas. Character is built from those choices, and she made hers. At 11:59 p.m., I received an email from Vincent. Subject, transfer complete. Body. As of January 15, 2025, at 11:59 p.m., ownership of Harrington Development Group LLC has officially transferred to the Eleanor Harrington Foundation, pursuant to Section 7.3 of the Operating Agreement. You have been formally appointed as Executive Director. Welcome to your mother's legacy. I sat on Patricia's balcony looking at the Miami skyline. My father built an empire. My mother inspired a foundation. And now they were both in my hands. What do we do now, mijo? I turned to Patricia. Now we build, but differently, for people, not just for profit. She smiled. Your mother would love that. Over the next 3 days, Scarlett moved out. I didn't go to the house. I had no desire to. The movers handled everything. On the 9th day, the moving company called me. She left a box for you. Inside were my mother's photos, the ones Scarlett had put into storage. Attached was a handwritten note. These belong to you. I'm sorry I tried to take them away. S. On the 10th day, the house was empty. Vincent scheduled the final inspection, and Patricia and I drove to Star Island. Without furniture, the mansion felt different, smaller somehow. Walking through it, our footsteps echoed. We walked through the rooms. My father's study, my mother's art studio, my childhood bedroom. Patricia touched the wall in the living room where my mother's wedding photo had hung. What are you going to do with the house? I've been thinking about that. I'm going to sell it. Sell it? The foundation needs capital. After paying off the mortgage, there will be nearly $10 million in equity. That's enough to build something that actually matters. Like what? Housing. True housing for families fighting cancer. People who are trying to survive but can't afford $3,000 monthly rents. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Your mother would absolutely love that. I know. 6 weeks later, the house sold for $19.5 million to a tech executive moving from California. After settling the mortgage, the foundation walked away with $7.5 million. After taxes and fees, it was more than enough. Vincent and I used the funds to acquire land in Little Havana and began development on the Eleanor Harrington Memorial Housing Complex. 12 apartments, brand new construction located near my mother's favorite Cuban restaurant. We leased them at a fraction of market rate to families affected by cancer, partnering with the Sylvester Cancer Center to offer on-site support services. The grand opening was held on a Saturday in June. Patricia cut the ribbon, crying so hard she could barely hold the scissors. The first tenants moved in that day. Among them was Mrs. Sullivan, the elderly tenant Scarlett had tried to evict. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Your father saved my life by keeping my rent low," she said. "And now you're doing the same. God bless you, Mr. Harrington." 6 months after my father's passing, I stood in a small office in Coconut Grove. My office. The office of the executive director of the Eleanor Harrington Foundation. The walls were covered in photos, before and after shots of our renovated properties, thank you letters from tenants, the framed bylaws of the foundation, and a photo of my parents. It was their wedding day. My mother was laughing in her white veil, and my father was looking at her as if she were the only thing in the world. We had helped 47 families. 47. The LLC was still operating and remained consistently profitable, bringing in about $180,000 a month. After expenses, roughly $50,000 went directly into the foundation every month, securing its future. I had resigned from the law firm. I didn't need the job anymore. The foundation paid me a modest salary, enough for a small apartment and basic expenses. I didn't need anything more. I started dating a woman named Emma. She's an oncology social worker, and we met through our work with the foundation. She reminds me of my mother, kind but strong, resilient but gentle. Patricia still manages the company books. She says she'll never retire. Not while there's still work to do, mijo. One afternoon, Patricia forwarded me an email from a real estate agent in Arizona. "Just so you know, Scarlett Rains remarried. Her new husband is a 67-year-old retired executive worth about $8 million. Thought you might want to know." I stared at that email for a long time. Patricia called me soon after. "Did you see it?" I did, and honestly, I hope she's happy. "You're far more forgiving than I am, mijo." Maybe. Or maybe my heart just doesn't have any room left for anger. Life is too short, and we have too many important things to build. That weekend, I drove out to the cemetery. My parents rested side by side on the grassy hill overlooking the Atlantic. I laid down some fresh flowers and sat on the grass between their headstones. "Hey Dad, hey Mom." The ocean waves were still loud and relentless, as honest as they had always been. "The foundation helped its 50th family today," I whispered. "A single mother with breast cancer and her 3 kids. We got them into a beautiful apartment. They cried, Dad. They cried because they thought they were going to be on the streets." I touched my mother's headstone. "Mom, I think you'd be proud of us. We are building something real, not just cold brick and mortar, but community and hope." I turned to my father's headstone. "Dad, I found the letter you left for me in the safe. Vincent gave me the combination last month. The letter was written a week before he passed. Nikki, if you are reading this, the plan worked. I never designed that structure to punish Scarlett. I built it to protect you and to honor your mother. The foundation, both the legal shell and the charitable heart, was always about love, not revenge. Your mother taught me that the only wealth of any value is the kind that lifts others. I spent my life building houses. You are going to build something much greater. Build a legacy, son. I'm proud of you, always have been. Now build well, and build with mercy." I had cried for an hour after reading that letter. Sitting between their graves now, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. "Justice doesn't have to scream," I whispered. "You both taught me that the quietest structures often have the strongest foundations. You laid a bedrock that can't be broken, and even though you're gone, it's still holding me up." The sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow across the water. Scarlett wanted an empire, and she ended up with a painful lesson. What did I get? I got a legacy. I stood up and brushed the grass off my jeans. "I'll see you next week. Love you." I walked back to my car, where Patricia was waiting, leaning against the hood. "You okay, mijo?" "I'm great." "What's next?" I looked out at the sunset. I pictured the families living in our apartments, the loyal employees who stayed because they believed in our mission, and my mother's dream of a world where kindness mattered more than money. Now we keep building, one foundation at a time. My father always said, the strength of any structure depends entirely on its foundation. I used to think he was just talking about buildings, the concrete, the steel, the load-bearing walls. But he was talking about character. He was talking about the choices we make when no one is watching, and whether we anchor our lives in greed or in grace. Scarlett built her fortress on shifting sand, and when the tide rolled in, she lost everything. My father anchored his bedrock to solid stone. 6 months after his death, his foundation is still holding me up. So here is the question I want to leave you with. What is your foundation built on? Because eventually, every structure is tested. The winds will howl, the ground will shake, and the pressure will rise. And when that day comes, you'll find out exactly what your foundation is made of. Build it well. If you've ever experienced something similar, betrayal, unfairness, or finally seeing someone's true colors, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if you believe in building a foundation that stands the test of time, share this with someone who needs to hear it. My name is Sienna Fry, and I'm 30 years old. When my brother graduated from college, my father bought him a luxury condo in New York City. But when I graduated, he handed me a deed to a run-down house in the middle of nowhere and a barren patch of land. He didn't even look up from his desk when he said, "Take the old place. At least you can't ruin anything of value out there." I didn't beg and I didn't argue. I just packed my bags and moved. 3 years later, my flower farm went viral on Instagram. That was when my mother suddenly showed up. She didn't come to congratulate me and she didn't ask how I was doing. She brought a legal notice. "You have 72 hours to sign this property back over to us. Your brother is taking it." What she didn't know was that in those 3 years, I had grown far more than just a garden. 3 days later, my brother drove up in his pickup truck, ready to claim my land. But before he even crossed the property line, his face went completely pale. He thought I was just going to hand everything over, but he had no idea what kind of leverage I was holding. The story really begins 7 years ago. It was May 2018, and Garrett had just graduated with his MBA from Columbia Business School. At 28, wearing a sharp custom-tailored suit, his ambition was palpable. Our family of 5 celebrated with dinner at Balthazar in Soho. The bill was $680. To celebrate, Garrett ordered a bottle of Dom Perignon, and my father didn't even blink at the price. Halfway through dessert, my father stood up. Douglas Fry was 55 then, he's 62 now, and he ruled his logistics company like a general. He cleared his throat. "Garrett, your mother and I want you to focus entirely on your career, so we bought you a property." Garrett's eyebrows shot up. My mother, Vivian, who was 51 at the time, was grinning ear to ear, clearly thrilled to finally share the secret they'd been keeping for months. "Upper East Side," my father continued. 23rd floor, 1,200 square feet. You can move in next month." The table went quiet for a second before Garrett smiled. It wasn't a look of surprise, it was a look of entitlement. Like, of course, they would buy it for him. "Wait," he said, "you bought me a condo?" $847,000, my father said proudly, "and we set aside a $15,000 furniture budget to make sure you set up your new home properly." Garrett stood up, hugging both our parents as they shed tears of joy and success. I was 18, sitting at the far end of the table. I did the math in my head. An $847,000 condo plus a $15,000 furniture budget came out to $862,000. My mother turned to me and patted my hand. "Don't worry, sweetie. When the time comes, we'll have something for you too. Once you're ready." And back then, I actually believed her. 3 years later, in May 2021, I graduated from SUNY with a bachelor's degree in environmental science and a 3.7 GPA. Over those 4 years, I worked multiple campus jobs just to keep my student loans under $30,000. I felt pretty good about what I had accomplished. We went to Applebee's for my celebration. It was my choice because it was cheap. The total bill was $86. There were no announcements and no toasts. My father spent the entire lunch staring at the menu as if it were a test he had to study for, while my mother made idle small talk, asking what my plans were for the summer. I told her I was working on a plan. Garrett didn't even show up. He just sent a quick text to the family group chat. "Congrats, sis! Locked down at work today. Keep crushing it." 3 sentences, a few words, and an exclamation mark. My best friend Natalie came instead. She gave me a pair of earrings she'd saved up for 2 months to buy. They cost $40, sterling silver with delicate, tiny lavender flowers. She knew lavender was my favorite. Natalie was 29, working as a graphic designer making about $45,000 a year, so those earrings were a meaningful sacrifice for her. After lunch, I kept waiting. I thought maybe my dad would say something on the drive home, or my mom would pull me aside with a surprise. Nothing happened. 3 days later, my father called. "Come by the house. We need to talk about your situation." My situation, not my future, and not my graduation gift. Just my situation. It was May 26, 2021 at 3 p.m. I drove 45 minutes to my parents' house in Westchester, the very same living room where they had toasted Garrett's Upper East Side condo. My father handed me a manila folder. "We've decided to give you a property," he said. I opened it to find a deed for a 12-acre property in the Hudson Valley, featuring a house built in 1978 that hadn't been touched since 1991. "It's an old place," my mother added. "Douglas inherited it from his uncle. We've been paying property taxes on it for years for no good reason." I pulled out a property valuation report from 2020. Total valuation, $198,000. Attached to the report was a sticky note in my father's handwriting. "Barely worth land value. House probably needs to be torn down." "You're giving me a house?" I asked. My father leaned back in his chair. "Take the old place. At least you can't ruin anything of value out there. By the way, the property tax is $4,200 a year. That's your responsibility now." I stared at the paperwork. $4,200 a year. I had exactly $4,392 in my bank account. A single year of property taxes would wipe me out. "When you bought Garrett's condo, didn't you give him a furniture budget too?" I asked. My mother blinked. "Well, Garrett needed to build a professional image." "How much was that budget again?" $15,000, my father said, "but that's different." "How is it different?" "Garrett's condo is an investment. This is a starting point for you." I looked down at the folder. A $198,000 valuation. Garrett had received $862,000. The difference was $664,000. $664,000. That was the exact measure of how much less I was worth to them than my brother. I didn't cry and I didn't argue, I just closed the folder. "Okay," I said. My father looked surprised, as if he had expected a fight. "You'll take it?" my mother asked. "Yes." She smiled, visibly relieved. "You'll love it out there, sweetie. It's quiet, peaceful, and perfect for someone who likes plants like you. Someone who likes plants. As if I were just a hobbyist gardener, and not someone who held a degree in environmental science and had written a senior thesis on sustainable agricultural systems. At 4:15 p.m., I left Westchester. I drove back to my apartment and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes before calling Natalie. "They gave me a house," I said. "That's amazing." "It's worth about a 15th of what they gave Garrett." The line went quiet. "Oh," she said. "Yeah. Are you going to take it?" "I already did." "Why?" "Because I'm going to make it worth more than his Upper East Side condo," I said, gripping the steering wheel. "I don't know how yet, but I will." On June 12, 2021, at 4:47 p.m., I pulled into the driveway at 47 Maybrook Road in upstate New York. It was 118 miles from the city, a 2-hour and 12-minute drive. The house was gray with peeling paint, and the front steps were split right down the middle. Behind it lay 12 acres of wild, overgrown land, barren in some spots where nothing seemed to grow. I opened the front door to a draft of dusty air. I spent an hour inspecting the place. 5 rooms, a kitchen, a living room, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bath. The toilet and sinks worked, but the water heater was completely shot. I called a local service company, and they gave me a quote. $1,850 to replace it. Earliest we can get out there is July 9th. I hung up and checked my bank account. After paying my moving costs and buying groceries, I had $4,180 left. I couldn't afford a new water heater, at least not yet. That night, the temperature dropped to 38 degrees. June nights in upstate New York can still be freezing. I had only 1 blanket and no heat. I boiled water on the stove and poured a few inches of lukewarm water into the tub, sitting in it while forcing myself not to picture Garrett's marble bathroom with heated floors. I got out, dried off, and put on 2 layers of clothes. I couldn't sleep, so I sat at the kitchen table and opened my father's folder again. The 2020 appraisal was brutal. Land value, $16,500 per acre. Building value, $0. Appraiser's note, structure adds no value to the property. Recommend demolition. My father's sticky note, barely worth land value, was still attached. I peeled it off, folded it carefully, and slid it into my wallet. I was going to keep that note. One day, I would prove him wrong. During my first week, I didn't tell anyone where I was. Garrett didn't ask, and my parents didn't call. I spent my days walking the 12 acres, measuring, observing, and mapping. The soil was dry, cracked in some places, and rocky in others. But in one corner, covering about 200 square feet, a patch of wildflowers had managed to grow. I marked the spot with a branch and counted the paces back to the house. 127 steps. On June 19th, my neighbor drove by to introduce herself. Mrs. Chen was 74 and lived about half a mile down the road. "Are you Douglas Fry's daughter?" she asked. "Yes." She looked at the dilapidated house, then at the dry land, and finally at me. "Brave girl," she said. "No one has been able to grow anything of value on this land in 40 years. She drove away, and I stood there in the quiet. No one has been able to grow anything in 40 years. I walked back to the wildflower patch, knelt down, and scooped up a handful of soil. "This is where I start," I said aloud, "right here." By August 3rd, 2021, I had been living there for 7 weeks. I planted a small vegetable garden using seeds from the local hardware store, tomatoes, lettuce, and zucchini. Every Saturday, I brought my harvest to the farmer's market in Cold Spring. The stall fee was $25. On my first day, I made $43, leaving me with an $18 profit. It was a meager return for 4 hours in the hot sun, but it was a start. A woman stopped by my stall. She was in her late 40s, her graying hair pulled back into a neat bun. She picked up a tomato and inspected it. "Did you grow these yourself?" she asked. "Yes, I did." "Where?" "In the Hudson Valley. I have 12 acres. She set the tomato down and looked at me. 12 acres? What are you doing with the rest of the land?" "Most of it is unusable right now. I'm working on a solution." She reached into her bag and handed me a card. Dr. Amelia Brennan, Cornell Cooperative Extension Sustainability Consultant. I took the card. "Can I come see your land?" she asked. "Why?" "Because 12 acres represents massive potential, and you're here selling $3 tomatoes. It tells me you don't realize what you're sitting on." I looked at the card, then back at her. "Okay, this Thursday at 2 p.m. Don't clear the land. I need to see it exactly as it is." She turned and walked away. I sold 4 more tomatoes that day, driving home with $61 cash. After the $25 stall fee, I made a clean $36 profit. I stuck Dr. Brennan's card to the fridge with a magnet. On Thursday, August 5th at 2 p.m., Dr. Brennan pulled into my driveway in a Subaru Outback. She got out and nodded. "Show me around," she said. I took her across the entire property. She didn't say much, but every 50 feet or so she knelt down to take soil samples, collecting 6 in total and labeling each one. "What are you testing for?" I asked. "pH, drainage, soil composition." "To grow what?" She stood up and brushed the dirt off her knees. "If you choose the right crop, you are sitting on a gold mine. Planting vegetables on this soil and slope is a waste of resources." "Then what should I plant?" "Lavender." I blinked. "Lavender?" "It's a high-value crop. Once established, it requires minimal maintenance. Lavender thrives in poor soil and loves excellent drainage." She looked at the slope of the land. "You have a 3 to 5% grade here, which is perfect, and I assume you get more than 8 hours of sun a day?" "At least that much," I nodded. "I'll send you the soil analysis in 2 days, but I'm 90% sure this land is practically tailor-made for lavender." "Growing lavender?" She handed me a printout. "With the right investment, you can yield about $40 to $60 per square foot annually. Done correctly, an acre can easily generate over $20,000 a year." I stared at the paper. $20,000 an acre. I had 12 acres. "Are you interested in doing this right?" she asked. "I don't have capital to invest." "How much do you have?" I hesitated. "A little under 4,000. She didn't blink. "Start small. Plant 200 plugs as a test plot. See if you can handle the physical labor. If you can, then scale up." "How much will 200 plugs cost?" "About $900. You'll also need a basic drip irrigation system, which will run around $3,000. My heart sank. "I don't have $3,900. "Then find it, borrow it, or work for it," she said, looking me straight in the eye. "Because if you don't invest now, you'll be selling $3 tomatoes by the side of the road for the rest of your life." She got back in her car and rolled down the window. "Call me when you're ready to do more than just survive." She drove off. I sat on the porch for an hour, running numbers on a calculator. 200 plugs, $890. Drip system, $3,200. Total, $4,090. I had exactly $4,180 in my account. If I spent this, I'd be left with $90. No safety net, no backup plan. I called Natalie. "I need a loan," I said. "How much?" $3,200. The line went silent. "Sienna, that's a lot of money." "I know, I'll pay you back with interest." "What's the plan?" I explained the lavender, the soil test, and Dr. Brennan's projections. "Okay," she said. "I believe in you. I'll wire the money tomorrow. Don't worry about paying me back until you start making a profit, because I know you will." After I hung up, I cried. It was the first time I had let myself cry in 2 months. The next day, the funds arrived. I ordered 200 lavender plugs from a farm in Oregon and paid for the irrigation system. My bank account balance was down to $12. On August 10th, 2021, I pushed all my chips to the middle of the table. By September, the lavender plugs arrived in 200 tiny pots. I spent 3 days planting them in a 0.3-acre test plot, spacing the rows 3 feet apart. The first frost hit on October 28th. I woke up at 5 a.m., ran outside, and checked every single plug. 197 survived, a 98.5% survival rate. I texted Dr. Brennan. 197 out of 200 made it. Is that good? She replied 4 minutes later, incredibly impressive. You have a gift for this. A gift. No one had ever told me I had a gift for anything. My family didn't reach out at all. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 20 months of silence. 0 visits. My mother called twice, neither call lasting more than 90 seconds. November 22nd, 2021. Are you managing? March 8th, 2022. Just checking in. Are you okay? Both times I answered, I'm fine. And both times she replied, good to hear, and hung up. Garrett never texted or called. His Instagram was filled with photos of rooftop bars, dinners, and events in Manhattan. His bio read, from investment banking to crypto. Building wealth, not working for it. My father sent one email on December 15th, 2021. Subject, property tax reminder. Body, tax bill is due January 10th. Amount is $4,200. Hope you are well. Dad, no, how are you? No, Merry Christmas. Just a reminder of the tax bill I owed on the property. I paid it on January 9th, 2022, which completely emptied the savings I had built up from 3 months of working a remote data entry job at $18 an hour. On Thanksgiving 2021, my mother called. We're having dinner at 4 p.m. Can you make it? I drove 2.5 hours back to Westchester. Garrett was there with his new girlfriend, Madison, a 26-year-old who worked in PR. She wore a Tory Burch dress and talked endlessly about her spin classes in Soho. Dinner began at 4:30 p.m. My father asked Garrett about his career, and Garrett spent 40 minutes talking about leaving Goldman Sachs, trading full-time, the future of crypto, and how he was structuring his portfolio. My father nodded along, asking questions and fully engaging. At 5:47 p.m., my father finally looked at me. How's the house? Good. Good. And that was it. 1 question, 1 word, 5 seconds. We finished our pumpkin pie and I left at 7:15 p.m. On the drive back to the Hudson Valley, I cried so hard I had to pull over to the side of the road. Through the winter of 2021 and into 2022, I kept working my remote data entry job for an insurance company, logging 25 hours a week at $18 an hour. I saved every single dollar. By March 2022, I had saved enough to buy 1,200 new lavender plugs. The supplier offered an installment plan, $4 per plug, 30% down, and the balance upon delivery. Total, $4,800. The down payment was $1,440. I expanded the planting area to 2.1 acres. My farm's Instagram account had 127 followers, most of them automated bot accounts. I posted photos of the plants, our progress, and the neat rows. No likes, no comments. On March 18, 2022, Garrett called. It was his first call in 10 months. Hey, quick question, he said. Do you still have that land? Yes. A buddy of mine is looking for a cheap property upstate. Would you be interested in selling? I'm using the land. For what? I'm building a farm. He laughed. A farm? Seriously? Yes. All right. Let me know if you change your mind. I could probably get you around $250,000 for it. $250,000. It was $50,000 more than my father's valuation, but still less than a third of the cost of Garrett's condo. I'm not selling, I said. Suit yourself, he replied and hung up. In July 2022, I had my first real harvest. The original 197 plants yielded 89 pounds of dried lavender. I sold it at the farmer's market for $22 a pound, bringing in $1,820. After deducting expenses like water, materials, and gas, I ended up with a net loss of $520. But even though I lost money, I secured orders. 12 customers wanted to reserve bulk shipments for 2023, wedding planners, boutique shops, and even a small essential oil business. I wrote their names in my notebook, 12 names and 12 reasons to keep going. I texted Natalie. First harvest, 89 pounds. I cried when we weighed it. She replied, "You did it, you actually did it." On Mother's Day, 2022, I posted a photo on Instagram. The lavender buds were just starting to open, casting a purple mist over the field. Caption: Year 1, still growing. My mother viewed the story at 11:52 p.m. She didn't like, comment, or message. I stared at the viewer list, and her name was right there. Vivian Fry. She saw it. She just didn't care. By the fall of 2022, I reinvested every dollar I could find, buying $2,700 worth of new plugs and taking on $8,500 in credit card debt at a 22.9% APR. The total planting area grew to 7.2 acres, covering 60% of the land. I was working 73 hours a week between data entry, farm work, and Saturdays at the market. By April 2023, I experienced my first profitable month. Revenue, $5,830. Costs, $3,180. Net profit, $2,650. Bank account balance, $6,892. It was the first time my account had exceeded $5,000 since I moved in. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the numbers on my phone. $6,800. I did it. A profitable month proved the business model worked. Our Instagram following grew to 1,834 people. While some were still bots, we now had real, organic followers, people who loved lavender and believed in small-scale farming. On May 15, 2023, Dr. Brennan visited for the first time in 18 months. She walked through the fields, silent for 10 minutes, just observing and touching the plants. "Finally," she said, turning to me, "you're ready." "Ready for what?" "I want to introduce you to some people, and you are not allowed to say no until you hear what they have to offer." "What people?" She smiled. "People who see what I see." On June 18, 2024, at 6:38 p.m., I was watering the furthest section of the property. The sun was going down, hitting that perfect photographic golden hour. The light filtered through the lavender, reflecting a brilliant, glowing purple I had never seen before. I pulled out my phone and shot a quick video. It was 47 seconds long, entirely unedited, just golden sunlight washing over waves of deep purple. I posted it to Instagram. My caption read, 3 years ago, this was barren, dead land. Today, it's 7 acres of lavender. Sometimes you have to plant your own miracles. I slid my phone back into my pocket and finished watering. By 8:15 p.m., the video had reached 12,000 views. I refreshed the page at 10:47 p.m., 340,000 views. I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the app every hour. By June 19th at 7 a.m., it was at 2.1 million views. By June 20th at 11 p.m., 8.3 million views. Over 8 million people had looked at my field. My inbox exploded with 834 message requests. I scrolled through them. Most were sweet comments or people asking if they could visit, but several were serious business inquiries. Hudson Valley Magazine. We would love to run a feature story on you. Can we talk? 3 different wedding planners. Do you host private events at your farm? An essential oil company. Are you open to wholesale partnerships? But one message changed everything. It came on June 25, 2024, at 10:14 a.m. We specialize in funding sustainable agricultural businesses. Your story caught our attention. Would you be open to a conversation? Timothy Schaefer, VP of Acquisitions, Verdant Ventures, LLC. I stared at the screen. Verdant Ventures. I looked them up online and found a highly respected venture capital firm with 14 sustainable agricultural businesses in their portfolio, legitimate farms, apiaries, and organic dairies. I didn't reply immediately. It wasn't time yet. In just 1 week, my following grew by over 120,000 people, jumping from 8,340 to over 135,000. Product orders flooded in for our handmade soaps, sachets, and essential oils. Our revenue for the month skyrocketed to $18,950, up from just $4,200 the previous month. I was making more in a single month than I had in the last 4 combined. I even received security deposits from 8 couples booking the farm as a wedding venue for 2025 at $2,500 each, securing $20,000 in booked revenue before the season even started. I called Natalie. I think it's happening, I said. What's happening? I don't know the specifics yet, but it's going to be massive. On June 21st at 7:12 a.m., Garrett called. I didn't answer, letting it go to voicemail. Hey Sienna, saw your stuff on Instagram. Pretty cool. Let's catch up soon. Give me a call back. I deleted the message. He hadn't called, texted, or checked on me in 2 years. Now that my video had 8 million views, he suddenly wanted to catch up. I blocked his number. July 2nd, 2024 was my father's 62nd birthday. My mother called. We're hosting a dinner at the house. Can you make it? I hadn't been to their home in 8 months. Okay, I said. I drove south and arrived at 4:30 p.m. Garrett's car wasn't in the driveway yet. I walked inside and found my mother in the kitchen. She hugged me. You look well, she said. Thanks, the farm is doing great. I saw your video. 8 million views is incredible. I waited for her to ask more, about the business, the growth, or how I was managing. Instead, she just asked, Can you help me set the table? And that was it. At 4:52 p.m., I was standing in the hallway when I heard my mother on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't know I was right outside. I don't care how you do it, Douglas. Figure it out. He is your son. A long pause. The condo is already mortgaged. What else do we have to borrow against? Another pause. How much? A heavy sigh. My God, Douglas, how does someone lose $890,000? I froze. $890,000. A private lender? Those people are sharks, Douglas. A pause. 18% monthly interest? Are you insane? A pause. August 15th? That's only 6 weeks away. Where are we going to find that kind of cash? I walked into the kitchen. My mother spun around, her face turning completely white when she saw me. I have to call you back, she said, quickly hanging up. She cleared her throat. Sweetie, I didn't hear you come in. How long have you been on the phone? I asked, looking her in the eye. Long enough, she whispered. Dinner began at 6:30 p.m. Garrett arrived 40 minutes late, looking exhausted, thinner than usual, with dark circles under his eyes. My father asked about his work. I'm currently exploring a few different opportunities, Garrett muttered. In other words, he was unemployed. What about your trading? My father asked. The market has been difficult lately. Which market? I interjected. Stocks or crypto? Garrett looked at me, making eye contact for the first time all evening. I diversified. Into what? I pushed. Let's not talk about business at the dinner table, my mother pleaded, quickly cutting in. We ate the rest of the meal in a dead silence. Afterward, as I was helping clear the dishes, my parents stepped into the study, leaving the door cracked. I heard my mother's voice. We can't let him lose everything, Douglas. That farm is actually worth something now. She'll understand. She has to. My father's voice sounded incredibly heavy. Vivian, she's built something real. She doesn't need the money the way he does. I set the dishes down, walked out the front door, got into my car, and drove home. During the 2.5-hour drive, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. By July 3rd, 2024, it all made sense. $890,000. Garrett, crypto. I searched online for the Luna crypto crash from May 2022. It was a major stablecoin that collapsed overnight, wiping out countless fortunes. May 2022. The exact month I was harvesting my very first 89 pounds of lavender. While I was sweating in the dirt, investing every penny into physical soil, he was losing everything in a highly leveraged digital algorithm. The difference was simple. The things I planted actually grew. At 11:38 p.m. on July 3rd, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Tell your brother his time is up. August 15th is the final deadline. No exceptions. It was a wrong number, clearly meant for my mother. But now, I held the cards. A private lender, high-interest sharks. The kind of people who don't go through legal bank channels. August 15th, 6 weeks. I knew they were going to come for my farm. I could feel it. I had a choice. Sit back and wait for them to demand it or take control of the narrative. On July 4th, 2024, at 3:47 p.m., I replied to Timothy Schaefer at Verdant Ventures. I'm ready to talk. When can we meet? Sienna. He replied at 8:12 p.m., even though it was a holiday. How about July 6th at 2 p.m.? I can meet you in Cold Spring. If you have a lawyer, bring them along. I immediately called Amanda Cortez, an agricultural business attorney recommended by Dr. Brennan, and booked a 2-hour consultation at $350 an hour. Then, I texted Natalie, remember when you said I'd pay you back with interest? I think I'm going to be able to double it very soon. On July 6th at 2 p.m., we met at the Cup and Saucer Cafe in Cold Spring. Timothy Schaefer was 51, with graying hair and a sharp suit. He brought a corporate lawyer who had a briefcase and a digital recorder. Amanda sat beside me. We ordered coffee, and the negotiations began. "We've been monitoring your metrics," Timothy said. 8 million views isn't a fluke. You've built a genuine brand, not just a farm. We want to scale it. "What does that look like?" I asked. "We buy the land, the business, and all the intellectual property, your Instagram account, your branding, and your client list. Then we invest in the infrastructure, hire a team, and turn this place into a regional destination." "And what happens to me?" "That's up to you. You can take the payout and walk or stay on and help us grow it." He slid a document across the table. $4 million. I looked at the number, $2.4 million. It was 12 times the valuation my father had placed on the property 3 years ago. Amanda leaned in and whispered, "Don't accept yet. Let's step outside." In the parking lot, Amanda leaned against a post. "They're lowballing you," she said. 2.4 is an understatement. The land alone is worth nearly $2 million now, and the business itself has a baseline valuation of at least 1.5. They're betting on you not knowing your own worth. "What should I ask for?" 3.2, and demand management rights. You are the face of this brand. They can't scale it without you. "What if they say no?" "They won't." We walked back inside and I looked Timothy in the eye. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I built this brand from nothing. The customers trust me, not a nameless corporation. I'm willing to sell for $2.85 million, but only under one condition." Timothy raised an eyebrow. "I remain the managing director for a minimum of 2 years, with a salary of $185,000 a year, plus a 3% share of the annual net profits. That is my baseline." He looked at his attorney, then back at me. "That's actually very reasonable," he smiled. "We wanted you to stay on anyway. Brand continuity is essential." He reached out his hand. "Give us 48 hours to draft the paperwork." On July 8th at 4:14 p.m., Amanda called. "They accepted all the terms. The contract will be ready tomorrow." I let out a long breath, sinking into my chair. "Sienna," Amanda said over the phone, "you're a millionaire." On July 9th at 10 a.m., I sat in Amanda's office. The contract was 47 pages long. I read every single word over the course of 3 hours. Acquisition price, $2,850,000. My role, Managing Director of Hudson Valley Lavender Farm, under Verdant Ventures, LLC. Term, 24 months. Salary, $185,000 per year. Profit share, 3% of annual net profits. Non-disclosure agreement, valid for 30 days, or until the official closing date. I signed my name at 1:22 p.m. "When is the closing date?" I asked. "They proposed July 25th, but we can request a different date if you'd like," Amanda said. I thought about my mother's 72-hour ultimatum. If she was going to make her move, she'd do it before their debt deadline. "Can we set the closing for July 14th? I asked, at exactly noon. "Why so precise?" "I have a plan." Amanda looked at me, then smiled. "I'll make it happen." At 2:47 p.m., I texted Natalie. "I signed the paperwork today. I can't tell you what it is just yet, but keep July 14th at noon completely open. Trust me." She replied instantly, "You're starting to scare me." "It's a good thing, I promise." On July 11th at 10:23 a.m., I was watering the lavender when I heard a car engine. I looked up to see my mother's Honda Accord. She was alone, and she hadn't called ahead. I turned off the hose. She got out of the car wearing beige linen pants, a blue top, and sunglasses. "Sienna, we need to talk now." "You could have called," I said. "This isn't something we can discuss over the phone." We sat on the porch. She didn't ask how I was doing, nor did she look out at the beautiful fields. She got straight to the point. "Your brother is in massive trouble, Sienna. Serious trouble. He needs money, and he needs a lot of it." "How much?" I asked. "At least $800,000. His condo is already leveraged. Your father and I only have $200,000 in savings. We're short by a significant margin." I looked at her coldly. "And you think my farm is the solution to that deficit?" "You have 72 hours to sign this property back over to us," she said, her voice turning commanding. "Your brother is taking it over." An icy silence settled between us. "You have 72 hours, she repeated, "until July 14th at noon. And then what?" "Then Garrett takes possession. He'll sell the property and use the proceeds to clear his debt." "And what do I get?" "We're not leaving you with nothing, Sienna. We'll give you $50,000. That's more than enough for you to start over somewhere else. It's incredibly fair." $50,000 in exchange for a farm worth $2.85 million. "You're young," she continued. "You're only 30. You can easily start another garden. But Garrett is 35, he can't afford to start over from scratch. Surely you can understand that. I built this entire place from scratch, I said, holding back my anger. But you had the land. Garrett only had an $84,000 condo. Her face tightened. It's different. How is it different? Garrett made a mistake. Do you really want to watch your brother suffer for the rest of his life over a single error? I stood up. I need to think about it. There's nothing to think about. July 14th at noon, your father and Garrett will be here to take possession. Pack up what you need. She stood up and walked to her car, turning back just before opening the door. We're a family, Sienna. This is what families do. She drove away. I sat on the porch for 11 minutes, completely still. At 11:47 a.m., I called Amanda. Can we move the closing ceremony up? I asked. It's already set for July 14th. We can't make it any earlier. No, I mean, can we invite guests? Let's bring in some local press and make it public. The line went quiet. What's going on, Sienna? Amanda asked. My family is trying to take the farm back. I want them to see exactly what they're trying to take and realize they can't. How many people do you want there? As many as possible. Contact Verdant Ventures. They'll love the publicity. Sienna, are you okay? I will be on July 14th at noon. On July 12th at 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email from my mother. Subject, FWD, I'm serious, Mom. I opened it. She had accidentally forwarded an email from Garrett. From garrett85@gmail.com to vivianfry62@yahoo.com. Sent July 9th, 2024 at 11:38 p.m. Mom, I need at least $800,000 or they're going to take everything. The condo, the car, all of it. I've been stalling them for weeks, but August 15th is the absolute deadline. Can you just sell her farm? She's basically just playing in the dirt anyway. You said she went viral, so the place must be worth something now, right? Maybe we can get $600,000 or $700,000 for it. She's only 30, she can get a real job. But I'm 35 and I can't start over with nothing. Dad agrees with me. He's just too quiet to say it. Please, Mom, I'm drowning here. I made a mistake with Luna, but I can't let one mistake ruin my entire life. Gee, I read it 4 times. Playing in the dirt. That was how he viewed my 3 years of 14-hour workdays. A real job. That was how he viewed a business bringing in nearly $20,000 a month in real revenue. Dad agrees with me. My father, the man who had handed me this barren land, agreed that I should sacrifice my livelihood to pay for Garrett's greed. I took a screenshot, saved it to my phone, my laptop, and backed it up to Google Drive. Then I forwarded it to Amanda. Subject, FYI. Background for Sunday's closing. 3 minutes later, my mother texted, please ignore that last email sent in error. We will talk on Sunday. I didn't reply. I texted Natalie. I need a favor. At the closing on Sunday, if my family shows up, don't let me back down no matter what. She replied instantly, what did they do? I sent her the screenshot. She called me immediately. Sienna, oh my God, playing in the dirt? I'm in. You are not giving them a single cent. Absolutely not, but I need you there to keep me anchored. I'll be there. That afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and created a guest list on Excel. Dr. Amelia Brennan, Natalie Klein reporter, Hudson Valley Magazine reporter, Poughkeepsie Journal Janet Kowalski, County Supervisor Amanda Cortez, Attorney Timothy Schaefer, and the Verdant Ventures team, 5 people, 12 business partners and suppliers, 8 local business owners, 3 neighbors, 10 local supporters from Instagram. By the time I finished, there were 43 names on the list. I drafted an email. You are cordially invited to attend the official closing and transfer ceremony for the Hudson Valley Lavender Farm, July 14th at 12 p.m. Light refreshments will be served. Your support has meant everything to me. I hit send. By 8 p.m., 38 people had RSVP'd. On July 13th, I rented an outdoor tent and 60 folding chairs for $1,850. I ordered catering for 50 people at $23 a head and bought 6 bottles of champagne. I was ready. I ordered a professional vinyl billboard, 8 feet wide, 4 feet high. It read, Under new ownership, Verdant Ventures, LLC. It cost $340. The total cost of the event was $3,520, all paid for through the farm's business account. The billboard arrived at 3:47 p.m. I unwrapped it on the lawn and just stared at it. At 8 feet wide, it was impossible to ignore. I snapped a photo and texted it to Natalie. This is what they're going to see tomorrow. She replied, I am so incredibly proud of you. At 6 p.m., I drove 45 minutes to the J. Crew outlet. I bought a navy blue pantsuit, the very first suit I've ever owned. It was on sale for $340. I paired it with black heels for $89. I hadn't worn heels since graduation. Total spent $429. Back home, I hung the suit on my door and practiced my speech in the mirror. Thank you all for being here. 3 years ago, I took over a piece of land most people considered completely worthless. I practiced it 6 times until my delivery was flawless. On the night of July 13th, at 11:47 p.m., I couldn't sleep. I walked out into the lavender fields under a bright, waxing gibbous moon. Standing right in the middle of the 7th row, I let my fingers brush against the leaves. Tomorrow they would find out exactly what I was worth. Not the value my father placed on me, nor the value Garrett assumed, but the value I had built with my own 2 hands. I whispered to the night breeze, "Tomorrow they will see my true worth." Back inside, I checked my phone. Dr. Brennan had texted me at 12:03 a.m., "Thank you for believing in this dirt." I replied, "I believed in you. The dirt just got lucky. See you at noon." She texted back a single word, "Proud." On July 14th, 2024, at 8:30 a.m., the caterers arrived. The tent had been set up the day before, with 60 white folding chairs arranged in neat rows, facing a long table for signing legal documents. Near the entrance, 6 bottles of champagne sat chilling in ice buckets next to a tower of 75 flutes. The massive vinyl sign stood directly facing the driveway, under new ownership, Verdant Ventures LLC, 8 feet wide, 4 feet high. Absolutely impossible to miss. By 10:47 a.m., the first guests started arriving. Dr. Brennan and 2 of her colleagues from the Cornell Extension Program were the first to walk in, giving me a tight hug. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "I've been preparing for this day for 3 years. At 11:52 a.m., while I was inside the tent verifying the seating chart with Amanda, Natalie rushed in. "He's here." My stomach sank. "Garrett?" "Yeah." A silver pickup just pulled in. I walked to the edge of the tent and looked out. It was a silver 2019 Dodge Ram. Garrett was behind the wheel. In the truck bed, he had 2 empty cardboard boxes, and a duffel bag sat on the passenger seat. He had come to pack up my life. He fully expected to move in tonight. But as he rounded the bend, he saw the massive white tent, the 40 cars parked on the grass, the crowd in business attire, and then the billboard. His truck suddenly jerked to a stop as he slammed on the brakes 15 feet from the entrance. He sat in his cab, staring at the scene for over 2 full minutes. I watched him in silence from the tent. Around a dozen guests had noticed his arrival and began whispering. Natalie texted me, "Your brother just stopped. He looks like he's seen a ghost." Garrett threw the door open, slammed it shut, and marched toward the entrance, his face flushed and his fists clenched. He didn't see me yet. His eyes locked onto Timothy Schaefer, who was chatting with our county supervisor, Janet Kowalski. Garrett stopped in his tracks. "What the hell is going on here? Where is my sister?" At 11:55 a.m., another car pulled in. My mother's Honda Accord, with Douglas in the passenger seat. They saw Garrett's truck, the tent, and the massive billboard. Through the windshield, I saw the color drain from my mother's face. Douglas said something I couldn't hear, but I watched his lips move. My mother didn't get out. She just gripped the steering wheel while Douglas stared straight ahead. At 11:58 a.m., I stepped out of the tent in my navy blue suit, hair styled up, clipboard in hand. I looked at the 3 of them, Garrett, Vivian, and Douglas. I met my father's eyes first, but he quickly looked away. Garrett stormed toward me. "What is this? Mom said you were handing over the land today. What the hell is going on here?" I didn't take a single step back. "The closing ceremony starts in 2 minutes. You're welcome to stay and watch." "Ceremony? What garbage ceremony? Sienna, we need to talk right now." "We will talk, this afternoon, but right now I have guests." "Guests? What guests?" Timothy Schaefer stepped forward perfectly on cue, offering his hand. "You must be the brother. Sienna has told us so much about you. Congratulations on having such a talented sister." Garrett stared at Timothy's hand, refusing to shake it. At exactly 12 p.m., Amanda Cortez walked up to the microphone. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this milestone." I looked over at Garrett, who stood frozen 15 feet away. My mother had finally gotten out of the car, walking over to stand beside him. My father followed slowly, his steps heavy. He looked much older than I remembered. "We are gathered here today," Amanda said, "to celebrate an extraordinary achievement." She spoke for about 4 minutes. 3 years ago, Sienna Fry took over 12 acres of barren land that most people wrote off as worthless. Today, that land has been valued at $2.85 million, and the business she built on it is thriving. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. I glanced at my mother. Her mouth was slightly open, her eyes vacant. "This is a story of vision, persistence, and refusing to let anyone else define your limits," Amanda concluded. The crowd erupted into applause. My father kept his eyes glued to the grass. Amanda then introduced Janet Kowalski, our county supervisor. Janet took the microphone. "I've represented this district for 8 years," she said, "and I can tell you that Sienna's farm is the exact model of sustainable business we need." She spoke for another 3 minutes. "When I first visited in May, Sienna had 4,000 lavender plants and a dream. Today, she has a multi-million-dollar enterprise and a blueprint for agricultural success. She's created jobs, driven tourism, and proven our farming traditions can thrive with the right approach. This is the American dream we need to celebrate." The applause went on for nearly a minute, cameras flashing in the bright afternoon sun. I looked back at Garrett and my parents standing 40 feet away. None of them were clapping. My mother's face was wet with tears, and they weren't tears of joy. My father's jaw was clenched tight, and Garrett looked like he was gritting his teeth so hard they might break. Then, Timothy Schaefer took the stage. "Verdant Ventures invests in sustainable agricultural businesses with massive growth potential," he said, speaking for about 5 minutes. "Sienna's farm exceeded every metric we look for. We offered a buyout of $2.85 million for the property and the business, but Sienna secured terms at the negotiating table that most sellers wouldn't even dare to ask for." He paused to let the crowd quiet down. "She insisted on staying. For the next 2 years, she will continue to run this operation as our managing director, with an annual salary of $185,000 plus a 3% share of net profits. She isn't just walking away with a check, she is stepping into leadership." The crowd cheered. Grace Chen, a reporter from Hudson Valley magazine, stood up. "Ms. Fry, can you tell us what you plan to do with the proceeds of this sale?" I walked up to the microphone. 41 faces stared back at me, including my family. "I'm going to pay back the person who believed in me when everyone else thought I was worthless," I said, looking toward Natalie. "And I'm going to invest in the next young woman who is handed a piece of bad land and told she should be grateful for it." The applause was deafening as cameras flashed in succession. Dr. Brennan stood up and asked to speak, and Amanda nodded. She walked to the front. 3 years ago, I met Sienna at a farmer's market. She made $43 that day and was thrilled, she said, drawing warm laughter from the crowd. I tested her soil and told her she had potential. She didn't just meet that potential, she shattered it. Her voice softened. I watched her work 14 hours a day in 90-degree heat. I watched her fix irrigation lines in the middle of the night. She turned dirt into gold. Not because she had resources, but because she refused to give up. This isn't luck. This is pure resilience. She sat down as I blinked back tears. In the third row, Natalie was crying. The applause lasted nearly a minute. During the commotion, Garrett abruptly turned and stormed toward his truck. My mother grabbed his arm, but he shrugged her off. He paused, then walked back over to stand with them, arms crossed, looking furious. Amanda laid out the 12 pages of legal documents. Patricia Moss, our 61-year-old notary, sat ready with her official New York State seal. Sign here, initial here, and here, she instructed. Timothy signed first at 12:24 p.m. I signed at 12:27 p.m., using the same $12 pen I'd had since college. As of July 14, 2024, at 12:27 p.m., Patricia announced, this property and business have been officially transferred. She pressed her notary seal onto the paper. It was official. Champagne bottles popped. Timothy raised his glass. To Sienna Fry, managing director, entrepreneur, and proof that success is the ultimate answer. The crowd toasted. I looked over, and only my father remained. Vivian and Garrett were gone. We took photos in front of the giant billboard, me, Timothy, Dr. Brennan, Amanda, and Natalie. The photographers snapped dozens of shots. Grace Chen asked me one final question. Sienna, how does it feel to turn a property valued under $200,000 into a $3 million asset in just 3 years? I looked straight into the lens. It feels like finally proving that I was never the problem. By 1:15 p.m., guests began to filter out. My father walked up to me. It was the first time he had spoken to me in 8 months. Can we talk? Just for a minute. At 1:47 p.m., we stood in the living room of the farmhouse, the very room where he had handed me the deed 3 years ago. Sienna, Garrett, Vivian, and Douglas. Garrett had come inside after sitting in his truck for 40 minutes. Make it quick, I said, crossing my arms. I still have guests outside. Garrett erupted. You knew we desperately needed the money and you sold it anyway. I looked at him calmly. I knew you wanted it. But I didn't know you needed it until Mom showed up at my door 3 days ago. And by then, the contract was already signed, 2 weeks before she even came to see me. A dead silence fell over the room. 2 weeks ago? His eyes widened. You signed it 2 weeks ago? So when Mom came here, you didn't even own it anymore? Exactly. But I couldn't tell her because I was under a strict NDA. Garrett paced the room frantically. You could have waited. You could have sold it and split the money with me. I'm your brother. You are. And when you graduated, Dad bought you an $847,000 condo. When I graduated, he handed me dirt. Did you ever offer to split your condo with me? That was different. How? I needed that condo to build my career. I needed a professional image to network. Vivian cut in. Sienna, please, your brother made a mistake. Just one mistake. Do you really want to watch him suffer forever? I stood up. He didn't make a mistake, Mom. He made a series of calculated choices. He quit a $230,000 job to day trade crypto. He lost $890,000. He leveraged his condo, and then he went to private loan sharks charging 18% interest. Those aren't mistakes, those are choices. He is your brother. And I built this business by stepping over the mud you gave me, not with your support. Vivian's voice sharpened. That's not fair. We gave you this land. You threw me a piece of land you wrote off as barely worth its taxes. I pointed at my father. You called Garrett's condo an investment and my land a burden. Are those the same? We didn't know you would succeed, my mother defended. That is exactly my point, I snapped. My father stood up. He had been silent the entire time. Vivian, quiet. She is right. Garrett spun around. Dad, no, let me speak. Douglas looked at me. I gave you this land because I thought it was safe. I was wrong. It could have ruined you. But you... His voice faltered. You turned it into something extraordinary. He sat down heavily. I never thought you had it in you. I always believed Garrett was the one destined for success. I was wrong about both of you. His hands were shaking. I noticed a subtle, involuntary tremor. I enabled you, Garrett, my father whispered, closing his eyes. I paid for every single one of your bad decisions. And Sienna, I completely underestimated you. Both were my failures as a father. A crack formed in my chest. 3 years. I had waited 3 years to hear those words. You could have told me that 3 years ago. My voice cracked, tears finally spilling over. Through all those endless nights when I lay awake wondering if I really was as worthless as you all made me feel. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. I am not using my hard-earned money to clear Garrett's debts, and I am not letting any of you touch my business. But I am not cutting you out of my life completely either, not yet. I looked at each of them. I need time to figure out if I can forgive you for trying to take the first thing I ever built. You have my number, but don't call me until you are ready to offer a real apology. Don't call because you need money, and don't call because you think my success is yours to take. Garrett opened his mouth to argue. I'm done, I said, pointing outside. Please leave. I walked out onto the porch. Natalie was waiting by the tent. She saw my face, asked no questions, and just held me close. Through the open living room window, my mother's voice carried outside. This is your fault, Douglas. You turned her into this cold, unfeeling person. My father's reply was quiet and heavy. No, I left her with nothing. She built herself into who she is today. By January 18th, 2025, the farmhouse office was completely renovated. It had central heating, high-speed Wi-Fi, and modern desks. We held a team meeting with our 9 employees. I sat at the head of the table. Our December revenue was $86,300. That's 14% above projections, and production is up 22% since October. We have met every single year one milestone set by Verdant Ventures. The room broke into applause. Sarah, our operations manager, spoke up next. Our Whole Foods contract officially launches on February 1st. We are fully stocked and ready to go. We had signed the $1.2 million annual deal with Whole Foods in November. Our lavender soaps, sachets, and essential oils would be carried in every store across the Northeast. After the meeting, I checked our Instagram. Our following had grown to 340,000. Our latest post showed the fields covered in fresh snow, garnering 89,000 likes. The top comment read, "This is what healing looks like." I occasionally heard updates about my family through Dr. Brennan. Garrett officially filed for bankruptcy in October. His Upper East Side condo was foreclosed and sold at auction in November for $680,000. After paying off the bank and the high-interest lenders, he was left with exactly $0. He moved back in with our parents and took a job as an entry-level logistics coordinator at a shipping company owned by one of my father's friends, earning $52,000 a year. He started working there in December. I hadn't spoken to him since the closing ceremony on July 14th. I kept his number blocked, though I still occasionally dreamed about him, dreams where I offered him money and he threw it back in my face. In October, my mother called. It was our first real conversation since July. "Your father was diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's," she said. "I thought you should know." We spoke for 8 minutes. I asked about his treatment and prognosis, but I didn't go to visit. "Will you come see us?" she asked. "I'm not ready yet." "When will you be ready?" "I don't know. I'll let you know when I am." I started therapy in September, attending weekly sessions at $160 each. My therapist asked me, "What is it you actually want from your family?" "I don't know." "What do you need right now?" "Time." On December 20th, a Christmas card arrived, addressed to Sienna Fry, managing director. Inside was a photo of just my parents, without Garrett. In my father's uneven handwriting, tremor evident in the ink, was a brief note. "We are so proud of you. We should have told you years ago. We should have shown you. That failure is ours, not yours. I'm sorry. Dad." Below his note, my mother had written, "You don't have to forgive us, but please know we finally see you now. Mom." Less than 40 words in total. I didn't reply, but I didn't throw it away either. I locked it in my desk drawer. On Christmas Day, I almost called. I held my phone, my thumb hovering over my father's number, but I couldn't bring myself to press it. I set the phone down and cried for 11 minutes. It was the first time I had cried for them since the summer. On New Year's Day, at 3:47 a.m., a text arrived from an unfamiliar Boston area code. "Sienna, it's Garrett. I know you blocked my number. I don't expect a reply, but I just need to say this. I'm sorry. I'm not apologizing because I'm broke and need help. I'm apologizing for acting like your success was somehow taken from me. I'm sorry I assumed you were destined to fail just because Dad gave you that old property. I'm sorry for being arrogant enough to think that because I was older, or a man, or went to a better school, I was somehow entitled to more. I see it clearly now. I know it's too late, but I understand. You didn't take anything from me. I threw away everything I had on my own. It's all on me. I hope you're doing well. You deserve the best. G." I read the message 6 times. On January 4th, at 11:20 a.m., I replied. It was my first communication with him in 173 days. "Thank you. I'm not ready to see you yet. But thank you." On January 18th, at 5:47 p.m., after wrapping up our team meetings and clearing my inbox, I put on my heavy winter coat and walked out into the snow-covered fields. It was 28 degrees, and 4 inches of snow blanketed the dormant plants. Our 4,100 lavender shrubs had a 97% survival rate. The business valuation had climbed to $3.1 million. After clearing my taxes, repaying Natalie double what she lent me, and making several key investments, my personal net worth stood at $1.87 million. I took a photo of the snow-covered sunset over the fields and uploaded it to Instagram at 6:03 p.m. My caption read, "Year 1 under new ownership is officially in the books. 12 acres, 9 employees, and 8.3 million reasons." I'm endlessly grateful to everyone who believed in a miracle grown from the dirt. Here's to year 2. And to anyone out there who has been handed some other person's leftovers and told to be grateful for it, you don't owe your success to them. But you do owe it to yourself to try. Within the first hour, the post had 47,000 likes and nearly 3,000 comments. The top comment from Dr. Brennan read, "Proud doesn't even begin to describe it." The second comment from Natalie, "I knew you could do it. I always knew." At 6:47 p.m., my father left a comment. It was his first time ever interacting with my social media. "Your mother and I are so proud of you. We should have said it sooner. I read it 3 times. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. By 7:15 p.m., I was back inside. The house was warm, heated by the new system we'd installed in August. The team had gone home at 6, leaving me in the quiet. I brewed a cup of tea using lavender and chamomile harvested right from my own fields. Sitting in the living room, which once felt like an icebox but was now a comfortable 68 degrees, I opened my laptop to review the Whole Foods contract one last time before it went live on February 1st. Then I closed the screen and looked around. At this house once valued at $0. At this land that was supposed to break me. I smiled. It wasn't a boastful laugh, but a quiet, deeply earned smile. The smile of someone who buried hope in the frozen ground and patiently waited for it to grow. Outside the snow kept falling, but inside I was warm. I whispered to myself, they tried to take it away. But they never understood that this has already taken root.